The latest on your election night coverage, plus what you need to know before polls close.
You're watching NBC Local 33 News at 6.
Good evening. Thank you for joining me. I'm Sydney Simone. It's election night here in Louisiana, and Be Our Proud is your local election headquarters. Time now is 6:01, which means you have less than 2 hours to cast your vote before polls close at 8 p.m. this evening. And there are several key races on our coverage area. One of the biggest, the East Baton Rouge mayor-president race. We'll get to that in just a moment, but first, let's look at an issue that affects the whole state. 4 proposed constitutional amendments. Amendment 1 would expand the current 9-member Judiciary Commission to 14. It'll also give the state Supreme Court authority to order the group to investigate allegations of judicial misconduct. Should the proposal pass, the new members would be appointed by Governor Landry and the legislature. Meanwhile, Amendment 2 would require lawmakers to wait 48 hours between a change to a proposed state budget and the final vote. There's an existing rule in place which requires the waiting period, but lawmakers often bypass it, making the rule part of the Constitution would force the legislature to follow it. Amendment 3 would let lawmakers extend a regular legislative session by up to 6 days so the chamber can vote on necessary budget bills. Often, the budget will be one of the last measures voted on, which is usually rushed. By giving the extension, lawmakers could potentially avoid a special session. And last, Amendment 4 would change how local governments handle property seizures when the owner has unowned property taxes. Current law gives owners a total of 3 years to pay back taxes before the property goes up for auction, often called a sheriff's sale. The law has garnered a lot of controversy. Opponents argue a 2023 U.S. Supreme Court ruling makes the current law unconstitutional. If the amendment passes, the state would have to change the penalty property owners face should they have back tax payments. And a little closer to home, a critical vote in the city of St. George as voters decide whether your taxes go to the city or if they stay here in Baton Rouge. Now, this will not be a new tax. The proposal only affects taxes you already pay. Right now, there are nearly $50 million in tax revenue held by Baton Rouge, funds which St. George leaders say they're owned after becoming a city earlier this year. Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome has long disputed whether St. George can be a city, and with St. George residents making up about 20% of the electorate in the parish, it would drastically change the outcome of the election. Meantime, several district council seats are in the runoff election. But first, let's look at District 1's race. Mayor Pro Tem Brandon Knoll, a Republican who represents the Northern District, is facing political newcomer and Democrat Eric Smith. Knoll has served on the council since first taking office in 2021. He previously served in Zachary's city council. Eric Smith is a business owner from Port Hudson near Zachary. In District 2, Eugene Collins, betting on his 20-plus year experience to show voters he's dedicated to his constituents. If re-elected, Collins will plan to focus on programs such as street safety, flood mitigation, infrastructure, and small business development. Meantime, 27-year-old opponent Anthony Kinney may be the youngest person running in this election. He says age doesn't matter, calling it his superpower, as he plans to invest in the youth to lead inside of our communities going forward. We'll have more from both campaigns later on in the show. And we're just hours away from learning who the next mayor-president of East Baton Rouge will be. Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome is up against Republican candidate Sid Edwards. In the November 5th election, Edwards finished in first place with 34% of the votes. Mayor Broome came in second with 31%. Earlier today, Broome rode in several parades across the parish, and in the midst of all the fun, the Democrat went to Park Forest Middle School to vote for the last time as a candidate for mayor-president.
We've had great support. As you know, Ted James endorsed our campaign, and we have welcomed those individuals who have voted for him because we believe and know that their vision is very closely aligned with the future that we see for Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge Parish.
If Mayor Broome wins tonight, this will be her third and final term. Her watch party is tonight at the Marriott. We'll have live coverage starting at 8 p.m. on our website, brproud.com. You can also catch it on our app. Meanwhile, Republican candidate Sid Edwards spent the last few days shaking hands and trying to get his message out. Edwards says up until this week, he raised $200,000 from Election Day on November 5th. The political newcomer surprised many, receiving the most votes in the general election, beating incumbent Sharon Weston Broome by about 5,000 votes. We spoke to Edwards last night as he wrapped up the last week of campaigning.
Whatever will be, because if I win, Baton Rouge is going to win. And if we don't, it doesn't change who I am. My boots are going to be back on the ground Monday, changing lives and doing what I can within the realm I'm in.
Edwards is the Dean of Students at Estrema High School and the head football coach. Now over to Ascension Parish. Gonzales residents are voting in a historic race as the city will have its first black mayor. Candidates Tim Riley and Kimlin Bailey Lamas, both Democrats, say they've been working hard this past month with a goal to get a victory. Riley brings in years of experience serving in city council, while Lamas brings in state and parish experience. We spoke with both candidates this morning. They're reminding voters to head to the polls.
We need you to come out to vote today because your vote is your voice, and the power of the vote is what leads us forward. Remember, in order to move the city of Gonzales forward, you need number 38.
A vote for Tim Riley is a vote for a brighter future, for moving Gonzales forward, for your youth, for economic development, and for a safer Gonzales.
Both say they emphasize the importance of using your voice by voting, as this race will impact the growth of the city of Gonzales. Well, another cold, wet night here in the capital city, but cool weather isn't stopping the folks from hitting the roads. Adam, what can drivers expect on their commute tonight, whether they're heading to the polls or heading out to some Christmas activities?
Yeah, you know, Sydney, it's been a really kind of rough day with the cold and rainy conditions out there. And we still have that on the roadways here all across I-10. You can see those wet roadways from the Acadian Thruway all the way over along I-10 to the 12 split. Dalrymple also seeing that too. So we have that wet weather around, and it is going to continue for tonight. Take a look at your radar here. I am tracking a few showers still back beyond I-49 here through St. Landry Parish. That is going to work its way into the capital city by the time we get to around 8 o'clock tonight. So we still have a few of those light showers to go. We are looking at some chillier temperatures where the rain has been persistent, mid-40s back out towards Lafayette. But here in Baton Rouge, we're at 49 degrees. And a quick look at that planner for tonight. Well, keep the rain gear handy. I'm tracking that in your forecast coming up.
Welcome back. The District 2 council seat is up for grabs, and two candidates are vying for the position to lead a large part of North Baton Rouge and Baker for the next 4 years. Kayla Gaston spoke with Anthony Kinney about his vision for the district if elected.
We are in the final stretch of the runoff election for the East Baton Rouge Metro Council District 2 seat. One of the candidates, Democrat Anthony Kinney, was greeting voters as they head to the polls, hoping to gain their vote.
During my time talking to constituents, organizations, elected officials, everybody's working separately. North Baton Rouge has already been an economically depressed side of town and district in North Baton Rouge. And so I want to ensure at the next Metro Councilman that I am the ambassador that will unify the entire district.
The 27-year-old is up against Democrat Eugene Collins, and Kinney is confident about his chances of winning and becoming the new representative for the district.
And being a first-time candidate, I feel like the age was not an issue. The leadership experience was not an issue. They are ready for new, fresh vision and ideas, and I am ready to move this community forward, and I know they're ready to do it tonight as well.
The seat is currently held by Councilwoman Shauna Banks, who will leave office at the end of this year. For your local election headquarters, I'm Kayla Gaston.
Thanks, Kayla. And staying in District 2, Democratic candidate Eugene Collins says he spent the last 20 years putting in a lot of work into the community. Collins says he's been in many organizations that benefit the area, like medical care, and lead organizer for the Scotlandville Access. He says the district needs to work on many issues he's addressed, including flooding in Baker and the flood desert surrounding the area. He says if elected, he'll continue doing his work and pouring into the district.
When you look at the issues that I've tackled over the years, it's been pretty much around the block. I've been a community advocate here for over 20 years and working in this community for a very long time. We look at hitting the ground running. That run started a long time ago. I would just want the opportunity to finish the work.
He also says if elected, he'll be on the forefront of making sure they responsibly developed the community. Well, don't touch that remote just yet. Your election coverage continues next. Welcome back. Let's head over to Iberville Parish, where voters will find two major races along with two parish-wide propositions. For Plaquemine, the mayor's race puts independent John J.B. Barker against Democrat Timmy Martinez. Meanwhile, Mayor of Rosedale candidates include two independents, Dana Nero Alexander and Randall Panko Vado Sr. Meantime, folks in Livingston Parish have three propositions to look at on the ballot this year for this election. Proposition 1 concerns flood drainage in the parish, and if it passes, residents will pay over $3 million in taxes each year for the next 20 years to maintain drainage areas. Only Denham Springs is exempt from this measure. Now, Proposition 2 would allow the parish council to hire its own legal help in court cases, and Proposition 3 would continue a property tax measure aimed at maintaining the recreation district. The tax would only go for 10 years, and 2026 to 2035 is that time period, and would raise around $4 million in taxes each year. Meanwhile, to Assumption Parish, where residents will have several propositions to consider. The first aims to fund the construction and maintenance of levees, drainage, flood protection, and hurricane protection and related expenses. Voters will decide whether to renew an annual parcel fee of $75 for each lot within the Pure Part Settlement Gravity Drainage District. And the other three propositions deal with the parish-wide school district, the first of which would provide additional support to public elementary and secondary schools from 2025 to 2034. The second proposition asks voters to continue a 20.81 mills tax on all taxable property, generating an estimated $4.7 million annually to aid and support public schools. This renewal would span from 2028 to 2037. The third proposition involves a renewal of a 6.97 mills tax on all taxable property within the district, expected to bring in nearly $1.6 million annually. For additional support to public elementary and secondary schools, this tax would be in effect from 2029 to 2038. Well, we've been talking a lot about politics this evening, but how about a break from that and now turning to our Go Nation sports team.